Okay. So the theme for tonight is spiritual friendship. And the reason I chose to speak about this is that I had someone who is a regular of the Sangha talk about how she really wants to feel more connected to other people in this community and doesn't know how to make that happen. Yeah. And she started asking me, what is spiritual friendship? What does it look like? How do you do it? Yeah, very interesting conversation we had about spiritual friendship about a week and a half ago. Well, what's interesting is since that happened, my best friend, who was a regular at this Sangha for about a decade, and then she started having, her mother was dying, so she spent the last 2 years in crisis with trying to help her mother die. And her mother just died 2 months ago, and then she started having physical problems. But we usually walk together about 3, 4 times a week for, I don't know, years. But she was my best spiritual friend. And we used to talk about our spiritual practices, about what's going on in our lives. We would share our challenges or things that are beautiful in our lives. And we really just loved each other and supported each other. But anyhow, she's in the hospital. Some of you may know. I brought her to the hospital last week. She's been having difficulties walking and talking, just simple things. So I rushed her to the hospital. I've been taking care of her cats, and she has a brain tumor. And they found out yesterday, day before. They did some surgery, and they said it's terminal brain cancer. So it's like I had already decided on this theme for tonight, but now it's really alive for me right now. Spiritual friendship. What is spiritual friendship? What does it mean? Why is it valuable? You know, I forgot what neuroscientist it was, but I had been reading. I love neuroscience, even though I can't remember a lot of it, but it just really intrigues me. And this neuroscientist said that he believes, based on all of his studies, that the whole brain is designed for relationships. That every part of our brain is designed so that we can have relationships, so that we can converse and connect and notice other people's feelings and, you know, be observant and communicate. So we have a social, what's called the social brain. We're social animals. We're meant to be in relationship with each other. And I would venture to say that we've lost a lot of that in the past with technology and with advanced modern living that we have today, that we've kind of disconnected from that. Remember, we used to live in tribes and or in communities with large families and have a lot of family type gatherings, and now everyone's just too busy and they live too far away. And um, I understand that a lot of religious organizations that have very vibrant communities are starting to dwindle now. Where's the community room? You know, the big community center where people had local dances and fun things that they did, right? It's just not as prevalent today as it used to be, at least in my lifetime. So what is a great spiritual friendship and why is it important? Right? I don't, you know, the Buddha, when he reached enlightenment, he ran over and found his 5 best friends that were practicing with him to tell them about his enlightenment and to share his wisdom and awakenings that he had with them. And he decided that this was something important that he wanted to share. And the spiritual path is something that is meant to be shared. It's not something meant to hoard, you know, to hold off and hold to ourselves and only share it with 1 or 2 people. The Buddha said, someone asked him once, what is the greatest gift you can give another person? And he said, the gift of the Dharma, the gift of your spiritual wisdom. That's interesting, right? And that's why we come here together. That's why we share and do a lot of sharing at the end. Not this community is not so I can sit here and be the great one who knows, expounding the Dharma unto you. And even though I do some of that, that's not the sole purpose, right? The secondary purpose is so that we can learn from each other, right? So that you can gain in the wisdom from one another. But being a spiritual friend is not always easy. It can be really quite challenging, right? So it's not, I think that part of what stands in our way today of spiritual friendship is, just think about it. When you were a kid growing up, did anyone teach you how to be a good friend? Did the teachers teach you how to be a good friend? Did your parents teach you how to be a good friend? Did who taught us how to be social? We got, maybe ridiculed or put down or yelled at or disliked if we weren't being a certain way. So we kind of learned through trial and error in our relationships, which there's a lot of that happens naturally. But we never went to school on how to listen, how to be present, how to care, how to be a friend, how to receive, how to give. Hopefully in a spiritual path, we start to learn some of these skills. But they don't come easily because our civilization doesn't really promote these kind of skills. I had someone who told me that her conversations, I forgot who it was, her conversations tend to be with other people more like monologues. Other people are giving her monologues disguised as dialogue. And I just love that. I'm like, whoa, monologue disguised as a dialogue, which is true. What happened to being able to have a give and take conversation? This person says something, you listen, let it touch your heart. Oh, and then imagine what this person's feeling, the empathy, and then respond from that place. And then whatever I say touches their heart, and then they respond. And not just having everyone giving a monologue about their own self, right? Yeah, so these things need to be learned or at least valued. One of the most famous statements on friendship, spiritual friendship from the Buddha, you may have heard when his cousin and attendant Ananda came to him and approached him because he had heard people saying that, the path is a solitary path, that we're supposed to just meditate and not worry about one another. And he told them, no, that admirable friendship, good, admirable spiritual friendship is at least half of the holy life. Right? And he told the Buddha what he said. And the Buddha said, no, Ananda, admirable spiritual friendship, admirable companionship, admirable camaraderie is actually the whole of the holy life. Not half, the whole. And then he went on to say, when a person has an admirable people as friends, companions, and comrades, he or she can expect to develop and pursue the entire spiritual path. This is really important, right? Yeah. So I've been taking care of my best friend because she's been sick. And her family lives in Virginia. And our other friend that lives in town has been out of town. She hasn't been here. So I've been getting her water, giving her ice, bringing her clothes, taking care of her cats, sitting with her for hours, watching YouTube videos with her because that's what makes her happy. These when I'm not working, right? I've been there every minute that I'm not working, and trying to get the nurses to give her pain meds when they're not enough. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? Then when they wouldn't bathe her, I finally, because they were too busy, I bathed her got the equipment and bathed her and made sure she had clean clothes and she's been being taken care of. And she's been looking at me and saying, she cried a few times and said, "Why are you being so sweet to me? Why are you being so kind? I don't know what I would do without you." And I said, "Well, I love you. Isn't this what people do for other people they care about?" And I finally had to guilt her family into coming here to help take care of her. It came the day after her surgery. And they'll be here. Two brothers are here yesterday and today. They're taking turns. And then she'll be alone tomorrow. And then other family members are coming for a week. But she said, "My family's not like this. I don't understand why you're like this." Um, and that reminded me, there was a sutta from the Buddha where he found a bunch of the monks were moved in with some other monks where they weren't sleeping before. Um, and he said, "What's going on?" They said, "Well, we're sleeping over here now." And he said, "Why are you moving?" And they said, "Well, so-and-so, one of the monks is sick." Um, so he went over to see the sick monk who was laying in excrement and urine and vomit. That nobody had bathed him, nobody had cleaned him, right? And so the Buddha very lovingly got the soap and water and cloths and cleaned this man. He changed his clothes, cleaned him up, put fresh clothes on him. And then he went and spoke to the other people, his bunkmates, roommates who left him there. And he said, "What are you doing?" They said, "Well, he was disgusting. He was sick. We don't want to get that." And he said, he's your brother. He's your spiritual friend. If we don't take care of each other, spiritual friends, then who's going to take care of us? Right? This is what we do for each other. We practice together. We support each other. We take care of each other when we're sick as well. Don't, he's pretty much saying, don't ever do that again. Of course, we live in separate homes. We're not all living together in the same monastery, but how can we be spiritual friends with one another in this community and in other communities? And not just through talk, you know. And even, let's say that we learn how to be generous and giving and from our hearts really enjoy being a good spiritual friend. What is it like when the other people are not able to receive? They're not willing to receive our support or help or love. There was a man that used to live in the area who had difficulty walking, and he used to come to our Sangha. And every time he would disappear for a while, I would call him, and he would say that he had nerve damage in his legs. His legs weren't working. And so that he's in a lot of pain. So I would offer, there's several of us would offer to go grocery shopping for him, to take him to his doctor's appointments or whatever he needed. So he was able to tell us how bad off he was, but then he would never take us up on our help or on our support. Right? So he didn't allow us to be spiritual friends with him, which made it hard because then we're like, well, why call and check on him if he's not if we can't be a good spiritual friend. So there's all kinds of studies now that shows, dozens of studies showing that people who have satisfying relationships with families and communities are happier, healthier, and they live longer, right? So that's not only does it feel good in our brain, it feels good in our body. We'll live substantially longer if we feel connected and loved and supported in a community with other people. Spiritual practice is not easy. Anyone notice that? Sometimes it's wonderful, and other times it's not easy. Sometimes we get lost. We're like, oh God, yeah. Do I have to be aware today? I think I'm going to go eat myself, eat 2 buckets of popcorn instead, or watch this really dreadful movie. So when the going gets rough, we need each other, right? We need to be able to lean on each other and support one another and say, wow, how do you work with practice when it starts getting really lonely or boring, or when you're feeling really agitated, right? A good spiritual friendships, we can talk about these things. Yeah. It helps us pull us out of our own delusion or confusion. If someone's lost in delusion, yeah, it might be nice to hear a little prod here and there from someone that cares about us, because it's hard to see our own delusion too. So here's some of the qualities that the Buddha said in the Sigalo-wada Sutta that is a good spiritual friend. One, spiritual friend protects you when you're vulnerable. Protects you when you're vulnerable. A spiritual friend cares about and wants to protect your wealth. So a good spiritual friend isn't going to, go and buy you some fruit and then say, you owe me $3.48. Maybe you will, or you won't say, give me $5 when I spent $3.48. I don't know. But you're going to warn your friend about potential scams, or maybe tell them about good deals that are going on. A spiritual friend is a refuge when you're afraid. When you're feeling really afraid, you want to be able to call a good spiritual friend and freak out to them, right? And then have them really care when you're afraid. And just having someone listen to you and say, okay, I hear that you're afraid, can help so much. Yeah, so you're not asking for a lot of stuff, but it's not easy. Here's Oprah Winfrey. She said, lots of people want to ride with you in the limo, but what you want is someone who will take the bus with you when the limo breaks down. Yeah. The enduring spiritual friend can be identified by 4 things, right? This is according to some more Buddhist teachings. The enduring friend doesn't tell you, they will tell you their secrets, right? So there's not all these terrible secrets. And then, of course, you're going to guard their secrets closely. You won't be spreading their secrets around. So they know this is a place where they can say what's on their heart, and you'll hold that with tenderness and with compassion and likewise. And then it's a safe place where these secrets are guarded. A good spiritual friend won't abandon you when in your misfortune, right? Oh, I know you're still sad because your relationship broke up. My God, will you get over it? No, you've had some misfortune, or you've lost your whatever, or you're sick. You just don't abandon someone when they're having a rough time. Yeah. So there's all kinds of, I could go on lists. The mentor, 4 things that identify a mentor, the compassionate friend that can be identified. The Buddha taught a bunch of things. If you want this information, I can send it to you. But here's another Buddhist text. It said, monks, a friend endowed with these qualities is worth associating with. She gives what is hard to give. She does what is hard to do. She endures what is hard to endure. She reveals her secrets to you. She keeps your secrets. When misfortune strikes, she does not abandon you, or he. Right? And when you're down and out, he or she does not look down on you, doesn't judge you. Yeah. I think that in our society, there's also this obsession with what is that when people are constantly keeping track of how much I give you and you give me? You know what I'm talking about, right? Where, yeah, of course, you don't want to be the one that's always giving and that other person's always the one receiving. You want some kind of give and take, but there are times where you're going to be the one doing all the giving for a while, and then there are going to be other times that they're doing all the giving for a while, depending on what's going on in their lives. There's not, I had a friend that I really loved, but every time I would buy her a meal or do something sweet for her, next thing I know, she's like, well, I need to take you out. Or you bought my cat and you took care of my cat. When can I take care of your cat? You know, and I'm like, it doesn't feel free. It feels kind of like there's guilt or shame or something going on with, yeah, not open receiving. And then being able to challenge your friend in the Dhamma with virtue, with ethics, if you see that they're doing things that might cause themselves harm, how do we bring those things up to them? Um, to be a spiritual friend means to take risks. I have heard a lot of people say, I was coming to the Sangha regularly, but, I didn't feel like I connected to anybody. And so I'm just, because I run into them going, oh, I haven't seen you in a while. Yeah, people just weren't being friendly with me. So I quit coming. So, well, did you speak to anybody? Did you say hello? Did you ask their names? It takes some risk taking to become a friend. It takes getting their telephone number or their email address, or if you really are attracted to what someone else is saying when they in their sharing or in their demeanor. Um, yeah, hopefully they want a good spiritual friend too. Yeah, and then being able to kick people out of your life when the measure of abuse is just too much. If they're abusive people, the Buddha even had an abusive cousin named Dewa Datta who joined the order, and he was very jealous of the Buddha, constantly trying to demean him, and he finally had to kick him out of the order and just say, you need to go, you're just causing too much drama and strife and pain, right? um, yeah, I had a friend, she was a spiritual friend for a little while, but every so often she'd call me and she'd be crying and sobbing and yelling at me and cursing me. I'd be like, what did I do? And then she would say, when you said so and so, you were really putting me down. And I was like, what? When did I put you down? What did I say? I won't be spoken to that way. And she would take something that I said that wasn't meant at all like what she had interpreted. And then she would go on the attack to the jugular. And then she would tell me I was lying when I said, actually, that's not what I remember saying. And my intention was this, and that. Um, I would say, I'm so sorry. That wasn't my intention to cause you pain and harm. And I'll try and do better next time. But she wasn't willing to listen to me and to my own pain or interpretation. But it would really ruin my day for a few hours. I'd be like, she screamed and cursed at. Yeah, that was difficult. So William Shakespeare, he described a friend as one that knows you as you are, understands where you've been, accepts what you have become, and still gently allows you to grow, and still gently allows you to grow. So one thing I've learned is that there is no such thing as a perfect person. People make mistakes. Can we talk through these mistakes? Can we forgive one another? Can we try to work through these things? If it's not too much, like I had to let go of the friend who would call me and go for the jugular about once a month, maybe once every 2 months. But I think our society suffers from idealism too. We want this perfect friend who never makes mistakes, who's always there for us. I don't know. There's a lot of idealism in our world, a lot of rigidity and attachment to certain ideals. So as Buddhist practitioners, we know that that's not reality, that there will be a measure of delusion. But can we love and accept our spiritual friends anyhow? And then the most important thing, I believe, is making spiritual friends with ourselves, right? Through loving kindness, through compassion. If we don't make spiritual friends with ourselves, then we'll become bloodsuckers, trying to suck everyone else dry and get all of our needs met through other people. And as we know, that's usually a recipe for disaster. So we want to take care of ourselves, be our own best spiritual friend, and then be able to share the gifts of what we're learning and with another being. So thank you for listening. I've talked longer than I anticipated.